Welcome to this breaking news edition of MLB Tonight. A busy Friday afternoon on the hot stove. Per John Heyman, this just in as Kyle Tucker to the Cubs for Isaac Paredes, Werenski, and Cam Smith. A couple of prospects is agreed pending medicals. Chandler Rome on the story. For more on this, it's your girl Lauren Gardner alongside Jesse Rogers of ESPN, baseball reporter based in Chicago, as we take a look here at the reported trade details. Tucker entering that final season of arbitration in exchange for those three pieces. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us here on this busy Friday. I'm sure that phone is lighting up like crazy, my friend. What do you make of the initial details of this trade?
Yeah, this is one of those that was kind of out there in the public and finally got to the finish line. And I think a lot of Cub fans kind of want to know what's the plan with Kyle Tucker, because he has 1 year left of team control before becoming a free agent. Thinking about 2025 and trying to make it back to the postseason for the first time in a full year since 2018. It's been a while outside of 2020. Tucker immediately becomes their best offensive player. There's no doubt about that. He makes other guys around him better. The guys they gave up a little bit expendable in the sense that both Paredes and Cam Smith are third basemen, and the Cubs really like one of their prospects that plays third, Matt Shaw. He could be the long-term answer there. Then they also traded Hayden Wesneski, a guy that's still finding his footing at the major league level. So I think they feel like, look, we have Matt Shaw at third. We can give up those third basemen. We need a true star, and Kyle Tucker is that. And I don't think they're thinking too much about the long term. I think they're thinking about 2025. The Astros get ahead of him walking via free agency next year, Tucker, and they are able to get Paredes at third in case Bregman leaves. Paredes is a dead pull hitter. He'll do well at Minute Maid Park. And then they add a couple other guys in Wesneski and Cam Smith, who could be the future someday at third base. Really good-looking prospect, or different position, you never know. So I think that's kind of the ins and outs of the deal, with both teams kind of reworking things. But the Cubs absolutely have the playoffs in mind for 2025, and that's why they pulled the trigger.
Yeah, and it feels like the NL Central is wide open, as we both know. What does this lineup look like now with Kyle Tucker in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because they still have Cody Bellinger under contract. They still have Seiya Suzuki under contract. The former guy finished the season in right field. The latter guy was the DH. I'm not sure either one starts the season with the Cubs. Now, Bellinger is the most likely guy to be on the move. Tucker will take his place in right. Everyone's talking about Bellinger potentially going to the Yankees. It makes a ton of sense. His dad played there. He can deal with the big market, be quite something for him. He's played in LA, Chicago, potentially New York, maybe somewhere else. Very valuable left-handed bat. Seiya Suzuki's interesting. I don't think he wants to play DH. His agent said as much at the winter meetings. He has a full no trade. It's going to be a little bit harder to trade him. Probably only maybe a few places he would go to waive that no trade. But if he stays, he could be the full-time DH. So the Cubs certainly have some things to work out in terms of that lineup. But, you know, Pete Crow Armstrong is this hotshot rookie that came on in the second half. He could be the leadoff man for him. At first base, they have a young player, Michael Busch, who had a good first year. You still have Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ, who's been an all-star. But Tucker is the difference maker. The Cubs have not had a true star in several seasons, and he fits the bill. Paredes is a legit hitter. He hit 30 home runs a couple years ago, hit 19 last year. Like I said, he's a dead pull hitter, which is perfect for Minute Maid. And the prospect that went with Paredes is a third baseman, but he's at single A. The point is, they may have just replaced Bregman. Now there's always options. Paredes could play first base. He has done that. So it doesn't completely close the door on Bregman at all, but it certainly gives Houston a replacement in case Bregman does leave.
Yeah, you know that Jose Altuve, we heard his comments after they were knocked out in the wild card about wanting a Bregman to stick with the Astros. Of course, we'll be disappointed along with the rest of the Astros fans. Over to the Cubs. I know you're Chicago-based. Do they have any other gaps to fill this offseason, Jesse?
Yeah, I think they still want to work on their bullpen. They've talked to Kyle Finnegan, for example. They traded for Eli Morgan. I think a lot of what they're going to do after they move Bellinger and or Suzuki will be on the mound. Maybe another starter. It's possible, but definitely a little bit more work in the bullpen for sure. I think they need to clear Bellinger's contract and move on from there. And by the way, I already talked to some of Tucker's people, and he is beyond thrilled to be joining what he said was an iconic franchise. So who knows? Maybe he falls in love with Chicago. The Cubs open up their wallets and they sign him up long term. I just don't think that's on the agenda anytime soon.
Yeah, certainly an iconic franchise with another great fan base, and I'm sure he'll enjoy playing in front of, like we mentioned, a very busy Friday on the hot stove as Milwaukee and New York were busy with this deal. Yankees acquiring Devin Williams in exchange for Nestor Cortez and Caleb Durbin. You see that? A couple of big arms there being exchanged along with an infielder, a prospect. Jesse, what are your initial reactions to this trade?
Yeah, it seems like a classic Milwaukee trade. Durbin can play all over the place. He feels like a Milwaukee Brewer type of player. They do what they always do. They sort of get ahead of a guy that's going to leave via free agency. Now, they couldn't do that with Willie Adames because he helped them win the division, but they're doing it with Devin Williams before he gets to free agency. And they've done so well at developing pitchers. I think they feel like they can figure out how to close out games. They've got some guys that were really good last year when Devin Williams was out. So it's a trade that actually makes a ton of sense in my mind for Milwaukee. And look, the Yankees have some work to do on the mound in the bullpen. There's some turnover there. Clay Holmes left. So I'm not surprised at either side making this deal at all. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it certainly does. And you look at, what Devin Williams brings to the table, especially given his age, the airbender, and again, like some of the turnover with the Yankees, the bullpen, and, some of the things they went through during the postseason. What are you hearing from the Yankees side, and, what else do they need to acquire here in this offseason, especially after missing out on Juan Soto?
Yeah, I mean, think about what happened last Sunday. They were about to drop, about $750 million on a player. They lost out. So where do they go with that money? Now, it's just, we're joking around. It's not like they're going to spend exactly $750, but they know that they had holes to fill and they have money that they can use now. And we saw they didn't wait too long to sign up Max Fried. If they add Cody Bellinger, that's probably going to be at least $20 million if the Cubs eat some of it. Could be up to $27 million if they don't, just for next year. So this is what they're doing. They're filling the holes with the money they didn't spend on Soto. They could sign Alex Bregman, move Jazz Chisholm over to second. They could trade for Nolan Arenado, make him a first baseman. The Yankees are not done by a long shot. I do think Bellinger is high on that list. We'll see if that gets to the finish line. But there's plenty more for them to do after losing out on Soto.
You're right. Aside from Cody Bellinger, I think there's still a lot of value left in Nolan Arenado. Actually, I think pretty underrated this offseason, in my opinion. Real quick, before we let you go, Jesse, we do appreciate your time. Let's talk about the Milwaukee perspective here. Any more moves for them?
Yeah, I mean, they might be done sort of shedding salary in a sense. I mean, they let Adames walk, which would have cost them a ton to retain him. They let Williams go. I think, like you'd expect, there's some smaller moves on the mound for them to make, in my estimation, just to sort of rework things. Brandon Woodruff is going to be back at some point. So I think they still think they're a really good team. They have a middle infielder or two to fill in for Willie Adames. They always seem to find a way. So I wouldn't doubt it. I just don't think they're going to be doing anything huge, but it might be just enough to stay in the race because they won the division by 10 games. So these little moves on the margins always seem to pay off big for Milwaukee. I wouldn't say that they're taking a step back by any means, not after what they did last season.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of fun to watch. And it seems like at times the Brewers are always playing chess regardless of that payroll. Hey, Jesse, thank you so much for your time this busy Friday afternoon. We appreciate you.
Sure thing. Great talking to you.
Likewise. Stay tuned here this Friday afternoon. More coverage on both of the trades that broke here. The hot stove alive and well. Tune in for MLB Tonight with Brian Kenny, Dan Plesac. This has been your breaking news edition of MLB Tonight.